Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for coming to this event. I want to talk about, thank you, Arye, for the presentation of the technical deep dive of the confidential token. Next subject is a deep dive into the use cases and opportunities that are being opened by this new standard and that you guys may be interested in building on top of it. So let's get right into it. So my name is Nicolas Pasquier. I work currently for Inco. I'm head of apps there, which means I'm mostly interested in what we are going to build on top of our encryption technology, and especially on top of this new confidential token standard. I'm a smart contract engineer. I'm one of the co-authors of the new standard, and you can follow me on Twitter at this handle. But most importantly, I want to talk about Inco as well. So Inco is another encryption technique protocol, which is similar to Zama, and which is going to enable the usage of the new confidential token standard in a different way, where Zama is using FHE to do confidential compute. We are going to use T-based encryption, which is going to allow us to have more throughput and less cost per transaction. So Arye just presented us the technicals of the new confidential token, but I want to get back a little bit on the very basics of what this new token allows us. It's basically an ERC20. Initially, we wanted to call it the confidential ERC20, but we can't do that because the new contract is not compatible with the ERC20 standard. So we have to call it by a new name. So we call it the confidential token. And it's basically like a regular transfer. Only difference is that the amounts are hidden and the balance of every user. So this schema helps us understand it a little bit better. Let's say I'm doing a transfer. What's going to be visible is the code of the smart contract, the asset being transferred, the amount being transferred. The sender and recipient are public. Just the amount is hidden. Something really interesting that we are going to get into very soon is that access control over who can decrypt and actually see the hidden information is fully programmable on-chain. And of course, this ERC is still draft. Zama is getting live very soon, so it's going to be used in production. But the ERC itself, anyone can still contribute to it. Anyone can still give feedback. And we can introduce your ideas inside the official standard. So don't hesitate to do that. First of all, bad use cases I want to talk about. Something the token is bad for is financing terrorism and money laundering. And this is because this token is not providing you anonymity. We can see the recipient and sender of every transfer. So if you are trying to send money to a terrorism organization, you're going to be sued. And it also applies to some personal use cases, like you may not want everybody to know that you are paying OnlyFans subscription. This is just an example. And in this case, we need to think of ways to allow this, because just the raw standard won't cut it. It's still public where you are sending your money. First thing that will need to be built on top of the standard is proof of innocence. So let's say it's the other situation. Let's say my address is being poisoned because I'm receiving some illegitimate funds. Let's say I'm receiving funds which is tainted with terrorism money. What I can do, thanks to the fact that I can reveal the amount I received, I can easily provide a proof of innocence, which is, okay, I received an illegitimate transfer. I can publish the amount I received publicly and then burn the amount I received. I'm expecting this to be a large infrastructure that we are going to need to build for this standard to be used at scale. So proof of innocence protocol will need to be built on top. Good use cases for it, and some ones that I'm personally very interested into is just holding and transferring assets. We are having issues in Ethereum and in the blockchain security, blockchain space for a long time that just holding assets is not safe because everybody can see how much money you have in your account. And just because of that, your security is in jeopardy. Like someone in the street can see if you're rich. Okay, I'm just going to kidnap that guy and torture him into giving him his money. So this is like the most simple stuff is what I'm personally most excited about this standard. Just hold assets. And to hold assets, so this new standard is compatible with existing wallets, existing blockchains, which is very strong. But since we are using encryption technology, some alternative front ends or web apps or maybe mobile apps are going to be needed to interact with it properly. So here I have an example of our implementation at Inco of what our web app to hold and transfer assets looks like. But many other clones may be interested to do. Something that you can implement inside of the transfer as well is transfer rules. So if a transfer fails on chain, it's not visible the amount which has been transferred. So let's say I'm not allowed to do a transfer to a third party. It's not going to be visible on chain that the transfer failed. And the amount will be swapped to zero. And so this allows us to implement inside of the contract directly confidential rules of transfer, let's say, which allow me to give like whitelist, blacklist, this kind of thing. Wrappers. So in the beginning, especially, we will need to onboard a lot of users to the new confidential token. And something like basic to implement is that we want regular ERC20s to turn into confidential tokens. And for that, we will need to implement wrappers. Since the ERC20 contract and the confidential token contract are not the same, some of the logic, custom logic that you may have inside of the ERC20, let's say posable function or admin functions, will need to be re-implemented inside of the wrapped asset. And you can implement some interesting primitives on top of this. Let's say I have a wrapping platform and every asset which is deposited on it earns yield by default. This is an interesting potential, not only use case, but business model. Something else which is very new and probably most people are not realizing yet is that in the blockchain space, we have different blockchains, and sometimes we need to bridge assets from one blockchain to another. But once we go to the standard, we will have coexisting on the same blockchain multiple encryption technologies. So the new confidential standard is leveraging technologies deployed, which being developed by enterprises such as Phoenix, Zama, or Inco. And it's going to behave very similarly to different blockchains. By default, a smart contract which was written for Zama cannot talk to a smart contract which was written for Inco. And this is going to apply to the confidential token. So if I want to do a swap between a confidential asset which is written for Zama with a confidential asset which is written for Inco, we will need some kind of bridging technology inside of the same chain. So I'm pretty excited about this. This is like a compatibility layer which will be need to be built. And to my knowledge, nobody is building this yet. Same for cross-chain bridging. This use case we are most familiar with. I think everybody has already used a cross-chain bridge. It will need to be custom-made for the confidential token because of course, the balances are encrypted. So some server will need to be allowed to decrypt the information and re-encrypt it on the destination chain. Something which is, again, yet to build. So now into more of the use cases. Something truly unique unlocked by the confidential token is token-based voting. I'm personally very excited about this one because we are solving a situation which is pretty bad currently. Like the DAO governance, we have stuff like last-minute big votes from large token holders which are swaying the decision, and we can have like pressure applied to DAO members because their votes are public. So you're not very sincere when you are voting. this is something that can be that confidentiality is actually solving. No, payroll is also a very good use case. One of the best use cases of the new token, in my opinion, because in an organization, usually your employees are public. Everybody knows who work for your company, but you don't want everybody to know how much you are paying every single one of your employees. That applies to fiat tokens, but that also, of course, applies to token vesting schedules. And you can have confidential token vesting schedules implemented on top of this token, which, in my opinion, will make this way more viable to emit token-based compensation to employees on chain. I'm now getting into more and more technical stuff. But a new primitive which is totally absent from current blockchain infrastructure is that, of course, data is encrypted. So when I'm holding a token, I can read my own balance. So my own balance is represented by encrypted data on chain, and I can decrypt it. But what happens if I want to share my balance with someone else, or if I want to share some of the stuff I've done in the past months with my tax accountant? I will need some access sharing infrastructure. The new token is actually allowing us to programmatically say precisely to whom and in which condition I can share information about my balances and what I'm doing with my token. And some new infrastructure will be needed for that, especially in indexing. Indexing currently on blockchains is very easy because all of the information is public. But now we are going to need to have new types of indexers, which are not only following everything which is happening on chain, but we'll also need to combine it with some sort of decryption on what the indexer is allowed to see for it to make sense of the hidden data that it's seeing on chain. Of course, I know I'm getting into very technical stuff, but I can dive deeper on this with whoever is interested in this kind of use cases after my talk. Of course, one of the major drawbacks of the token that we have currently is that the amounts are hidden, so I can hold a private balance. But this is not an anonymous token. As I said in the beginning of the presentation, if I'm sending some tokens to Genia, for example, everybody can see the recipient. What if you want full privacy? Full privacy would mean anonymity of sender and recipient on all of my transfers. I will need to combine the confidential token with some specific techniques. Like I gave a very simple example, but even with the hidden amounts, based on how much I received initially, let's say I initially wrapped 1,000 USD and I made a transfer to someone else, I can deduce an approximation of what the amount of my recipient the recipient balance can be. So we will need this kind of techniques to be developed. So batching is something we can do. Sending a lot of decoy transfer, I would say. So introducing some noise on chain, so it gets really, really hard to follow where the money is going. This is one way of doing this. But another way of doing it may be combined transfer with stealth addresses, which will maybe allow us to go into full anonymity with not much extra infrastructure. So I already said it, but we need to say it again. This new standard is not ERC20 compatible, which means that the whole infrastructure which has been built on top of ERC20 needs to be readapted for the new standard, which can be a pain for developers, but it's also a massive opportunity because all of these standards which have been developed on top of the ERC20 over the years, like the Vol standard, streaming tokens, flash loans, multi-token, Sol bonds, etc., you can actually re-implement them on top of the new standard. You can actually create new standards on top of the new standard, and each one of them is going to open new use cases. And of course, and it's probably going to be the focus of this association in the future years to come, we can bring some level of confidentiality to non-fungible tokens or to contracts which are implementing both fungible and non-fungible tokens. Now I'm going to go real fast over some last use cases I'm thinking of. Blind auctions is a real good one. So currently quite impossible to do it on chain. If I want to have an auction and I don't want everybody to know what the current base price is during a time period, pretty easy to build with a confidential token. Same with payment. I just want to point out that the new confidential standard is compatible with X402. So you can do your banking app on top. And I'm going quick over these ones because I don't have much to say. Currently, if you want to do lending or swapping on top of the confidential token, the best use case, the best way to do this is actually to unwrap the tokens and interact with an existing IMM, let's say Uniswap, or an existing lending protocol. But what has yet to be built is some fully native lending and exchange protocols on chain, which is, to be honest, a challenge. Earliest implementations that we were thinking of are not possible because if you want the price to be public, but not the amounts which are being exchanged on the DEX, for example, the price impact is going to reveal how much assets you've been moving. So you can't use a simple IMM design, or you can't use a simple pool-based design for lending. This is like open questions for the community to pick up and build on top of. So yeah, that's it. Now I'm open for questions. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I will be posting about the challenges of this confidential token and what's being built on top. And I think we have very exciting years ahead of us. And I would be happy to support anyone who wants to build on top of this confidential token or on top of Inco. Thank you.